Before we solve this problem, let's take a moment to define some of the terminology. For starters, when they say x equals 3 is a solution of the equation, all that means is that one possible value for x is 3, but there may be more. And when they say b is a constant, remember, a constant is a value that does not change. For example, pi is a constant, it always equals 3.14. So as a first step, if x equals 3 is one solution, let's take this information and plug it into our equation. I think it's going to help us figure out the value of b. So when we plug this in, we get 3 squared, which is 9, plus b times 3, which is 3b, minus 18 equals 0. As a next step, let's combine some of our like terms. For example, 9 plus negative 18, that is negative 9. And of course, we can add 9 to the other side of the equation and then divide both sides by 3, telling us that b equals 3. So now that we know that b equals 3, we're going to want to take this information and plug it back into our equation in hopes of finding the other solution for x. So if b equals 3, when we plug this in, we get x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. And that, of course, is a quadratic equation. Remember, a quadratic equation is an equation where you have one variable to the second power as well as to the first power. And recall, the way you solve quadratic equations is first you want to make sure that they're set equal to 0, and you want to make sure your x squared term is positive. Once you have those two conditions met, you set up two parentheses, and then you start each parenthesis with an x and an x, because of course x times x is x squared. Now once we hit this stage of our quadratic, we want to make sure we find two values, and those two values should multiply to negative 18, but add to positive 3. And if you can't do that easily on your own, ask yourself one question: what multiplies to negative 18? Well, the combos would be 1 times negative 18, as well as negative 1 times positive 18. 2 times negative 9, as well as negative 2 times positive 9. 3 times negative 6, as well as negative 3 times positive 6. Those are the combinations of whole numbers that multiply to negative 18. Well, which one of these combinations adds to positive 3? It's the negative 3, positive 6. Those are the two values we're after because they multiply to negative 18, but add to positive 3. So as a final step towards solving this quadratic, let's plug these values into our parentheses, giving us x minus 3 times x plus 6 equals 0. And at this stage, all we have to do to solve for x now is to set each parenthesis equal to 0. So we can say that x minus 3 equals 0, and we can say that x plus 6 equals 0. And when we solve those two equations, we see x can equal 3, but x can also equal negative 6. Now the question here, of course, is what is the other solution for x? Well, we saw at the beginning of this problem that x equals 3 is one solution. So what is the other solution? Well, we can see right here, the other solution is negative 6. And there you go, that's the reason here that the other solution is x equals negative 6.